We'll be starting with the session now. A very good evening to one and all present here. A wise person had once said that knowledge is the true organ of sight, not the eyes. Keeping this in mind, we would like to warmly welcome you all to Pahal Horizon, a multifaceted platform transcending the traditional realms of academic publishing. Apart from disseminating papers, hosting podcasts, and facilitating research internships, Pahal Horizon endeavors to enlighten and empower through engaging talks and webinars. Today, we gather to explore the profound significance of homesteading, a lifestyle choice with far-reaching implications, with our esteemed guest speaker, Zayne Sinclair, co-founder of Sinclair's 𝐤𝐴𝐧, a sustainable organization that epitomizes the ethos of self-reliance and sustainability inherent in homesteading. We warmly welcome Mr. Zayne Sinclair as he shares his expertise and insights with us on this enriching journey.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be here. The world's really small when I get to, connect with like-minded people like yourselves and present, a topic I'm really passionate about. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much. All right, sounds good. Without further ado, I'll share my screen. Alrighty, can everybody hear me okay? And see my screen?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Awesome. So yeah, like you said, I'll be presenting on the homesteading journey and the benefits and challenges and considerations I've run in through my business and some of the feedback I've got from clients and institutions, homeowners, and people within my country. So just as a bit of background, I'll just be going over quickly who I am, what it is I do. So like that warm introduction, my name is Zayne Sinclair, and I started a business when I was 16 years old called Sinclair Seed Sowing. It was in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. And being from a small island, I'm from Bermuda, which is a North Atlantic island, which is subtropical, and it's only 21 miles large. So as you can imagine, we do import about 90% of our food. So during that time, I realized that, unfortunately, because we're a bit too reliant on imports and kind of whether or not those ships will come in or not. And during the pandemic, it was pretty uncertain time, so we didn't really know if you were gonna, get those ships coming in consistently or what. So I started a business, and it started out helping homeowners create small gardens in the back of their properties. And through that, it kind of grew steadily. I'm celebrating my 4th year this year, through kind of starting off with homeowners, giving them the experience of actually constructing the garden, cultivating the vegetables, harvesting, and kind of educating them throughout that process. Over time, it grew into assisting education like institutions, commercial businesses, and even different charities in creating their own, garden plots, etc. And through that, I kind of got into the, I guess, realm of, homesteading. Through that, I got to professionalize. A lot of the pictures, this is quite some time ago. As you see, I have no hair, and now that I have hair. But through it, I worked with organizations by just researching what did they actually need for their projects. What were they trying to grow? What kind of demographic were they trying to feed? And what was the lifestyle they were looking to go along with that? If they're hardworking, if they don't have too much time to participate. And being in a small island like Bermuda, unfortunately, we are all kind of tightly packed together here. So, you kind of share a piece of land with neighbors and, schools or commercial businesses. So I think, the analysis as well of, what is it that they were trying to accomplish in regards to growing and being self-sufficient, etc., was definitely an interesting experience and definitely gave me a lot of wind under my sails as it relates to being an entrepreneur and kind of solving challenges and stuff. So without further ado, we'll get into what is homesteading, what is it in a nutshell. So homesteading is a lifestyle, rather than kind of just farming and stuff. It is characterized by kind of like subsistence agriculture, which is where you're growing food specifically for your family. Sometimes, in some instances, people do grow it, to export for a crop for income. But it also doesn't kind of just stop at agriculture, which is kind of what it's kind of largely known for. You think of a homestead, you think of a farm, which kind of goes hand in hand, farming, gardening, but also is, the preservation of food, the canning, pickling, and stuff like that. It's basically being as self-sufficient as possible. So that could also expand to, small scale production of textiles, creating your own clothes, if you are, kind of have a trade, doing a lot more trades around your house, whether it be mechanics or, kind of carpentry, etc. It's basically kind of making sure that people you don't have to rely that much on kind of commercial imports or going out to the store, the town, the village. It's making sure that you have as much as possible right there in your home. So it's about, kind of seeking a more independent and sustainable way of life. This can be achieved through various means, like I mentioned, growing food, raising livestock as well, producing your own energy, which we'll get to later in the presentation. And historically, land homesteading has a lot of links to kind of like land policies and stuff. And, I know that I don't know too much on the topic, but I know that India does definitely, and parts of Asia have the farthest back history of homesteading and farming and those things. So I want this presentation to be as engaging as possible. So if you have any questions or if you would like to butt in to give me some history and advice, I'm a student as well, so I would love to learn. If some of you own homesteads or farms, etc., I would love to hear more. So please feel free to chime in whenever. Some of the outcomes of homesteading, like I mentioned previously, is vegetable gardening. What crops grow best in your area. I'm not too familiar with India and south parts of Asia's climate, so you guys know that better than me. But just figuring out what parts of your environment grow the best. Which parts of your country maybe are drought resistant, what crops grow, I guess, well in those environments, etc. As well as animal cultivation, what animals grow really well in your area or kind of survive, whether it's kind of like extremely hot, extremely cold. So that involves, cows, chickens, goats, ducks. I don't know if you guys have turkeys and stuff. But part of that, another outcome is self-sufficiency. We're talking about, kind of raising, animals. Some of that could be to, kind of eat, as well as, raise from milk to make cheese or eggs, or, kind of harvest leather. It's a lot of different things, or even for pets. Like a lot of my clients grow, I'm saying grow, but kind of cultivate animals to have as pets and use in different ceremonies and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different kind of uses for crops as well as animals. But the main kind of ethos of this all is making sure that you're self-sufficient. So some of the benefits of that is one of the first ones that come to mind when you think of growing your own food and raising your cattle is health benefits. You know exactly where the food's coming from, kind of making sure that it's as close as home to possible as possible. Kind of that's a sustainable way. And the health benefits of growing your own food as well. A lot of times when the food that you buy in the grocery store stuff is kind of highly processed, so a lot of the pesticides used on those vegetables and stuff, you're kind of ingesting them, and that can lead to a lot of health kind of deficiencies. And funny enough, I found a lot of time when I was servicing clients, is that they kind of almost wanted the garden for more aesthetic purposes. They wanted gardens and farms more so for looks, to show their friends that they're gardening or they've got their own farms on their property. But a lot of the time they didn't even know the nutritional benefits of what nutrients do I actually need to function as a human being. So I think kind of that educational aspect is huge. What are you actually eating? What can you grow to make sure you have a full kind of diet? And as well as the economic benefits, it is pretty costly to start up. However, once you get your going and you're in your flow, you save a lot of money not having to go buy out, food or, meat, eggs, in some cases as well, you could even, produce your own energy. So you're looking at, huge savings in terms of making sure you can produce what you can on your property. And as well as the environmental impact, we see a lot of things, a lot of times, especially in modern times, this whole organic, eco, ESG, a lot of different topics of making sure your environmental impact is as positive as possible. Well, a lot of times in reality, that a lot of pressure can be on these large organizations, that are pumping out a lot of plastic or pollution, or doing large scale monocropping. So by another benefit of this could as well, being more self-reliant, is, kind of showing that these large corporations that, we could produce for ourselves. You don't have to keep kind of making the earth lose all its resources to provide. So I think that's another benefit as well. So onto the challenges though. I think knowledge and skills. A lot of times when you talk about, growing your own food or sewing and knitting, kind of different trades that you need to be as independent as possible. A lot of times some people may not have those skills. So having to kind of reskill and, learn different things in regards to, kind of being more independent and self-sufficient. Google, YouTube, and TikTok are your best friends. I can't even describe the amount of things I've just learned from being on TikTok and YouTube and Google. Like it's like it's like you can learn anything you literally want. Even ChatGPT, you can learn anything you want online. So I think a lot of the knowledge and skills that you will need, you can learn on YouTube and TikTok, and you'll be fine. However, like I mentioned previously, the initial investment cost could be pretty steep sometimes. If you're talking about, kind of cultivating land, buying land or buying a property, renovating a property, or, the nearby environment, and then building like chicken coops or, kind of like stables for cows and goats, maybe horses. And the same goes for like a lot of other animals you could grow on the property, as well as, buying the seed for the crops, buying the tools. There's a lot of cost factors that you have to kind of like consider. However, like I mentioned, as you kind of get going, you can make that money back, or if you even produce different products like clothes or, vegetables, or even if you do, different breedings where you could sell the offspring of some of your animals, you can make your investment back a bit quicker. So there's opportunities with that as well. And then, for the last point, I think one of the biggest challenges is the labor. Especially if you're in a hot environment, it requires a lot. I do encourage that, people go into this with their families. In Bermuda, because we're so small and because we're 21 miles, but we have about 65,000 people. So a lot of times your neighbors are your family. A lot of times you live in a homestead with your family and your relatives. You live by, like, it's a very tight knit community. A lot of times, a lot of people live with their cousins and grandparents and siblings. So as long as everybody pitches in, and kind of helps out with the homestead, the different chores around the property, it could be worth it. One hand can't clap. I think sometimes you have to take in the 80-20 rule of, like, 80% of the people doing the work, 20% of the people actually supporting and encouraging the people. It takes a lot of people working together to make a homestead actually work. And so we get to some of the considerations of homesteading. The legal aspects are a huge kind of factor. Definitely here in Bermuda, you can't even add a chicken coop without having to go to the Department of Planning, kind of give your plans to the department and be like, okay, this is what I want to do for my property. This is how I want to expand it and renovate. In much larger countries, do keep in mind that, Bermuda is not like, other parts of the world that have, hundreds of miles of land. So it's a bit different, especially if you're looking to go to a more rural part of the country. There may be potential to kind of have more freedom in how you develop your property. Unfortunately, here is not the case. Every little thing you do, you have to go to a department. So kind of understanding the laws in your area and, what local zoning laws and regulations do you have to follow and what protocols are in place, so you know how to go about, renovating your property accordingly and properly. So yeah, and even proximity, kind of making sure your homestead or, whatever property you do want to develop is nearby a town, a village, a city, just in case of emergency. If somebody needs medical attention, you're nearby to a hospital. If you have young kids or siblings, or you yourself are in school, you do want to make sure you are nearby a school or like an institution of higher learning. So I think that is a huge kind of factor in it. And even the proximity to, water, proximity to a river, the ocean, a beach, like some type of body of water for, anything like fishing, or, even if you need to get fresh water for, living purposes. Making sure you're in proximity to your necessities is important. You don't want to go too rural and then, you're in the middle of nowhere, Timbuktu, and you don't really know where to go. So yeah, that's a huge factor as well. That factor directly ties into climate suitability. I'm not too familiar with India's climate zone. I did pull up this graph here off of Google to see, and I see that it has it's so big. I can't even imagine. I'm literally come from, a 21-mile island. So when we look at places that are, hundreds of miles, it just blows my mind of, how diverse, this part of the world is. So I think you guys have a lot of options to choose from in terms of where do you may want to set up, or where do you guys, already live. And that's kind of finding the area that you want with the most suitable climate for you and your vision. Or when you can talk about raising a family or settling down or even relocating with your family, seeing where you guys may already live and how you can develop your property. I think kind of looking at the current climate you're in is a huge factor. So those are some considerations you should consider. And okay, necessary infrastructure. This is what a standard kind of homestead looks like in Bermuda. Now this is kind of an old picture. Well, it's actually a painting. We have some of the easterlies in front are white roofs, which I'll get into in a second why our roofs are white and made of limestone. We're actually on a volcano, and so we're because we're kind of on an underwater volcano. Our entire island is made of kind of like limestone and a mix of different materials, not like the regular kind of parts of the continent. We are kind of volcanic island. So being this is a kind of standard homestead, it could give you kind of a vision of what these houses look like, and some basic setups like you need, of course, land, fencing, storage facilities, which is usually in our cellars, or if you have an outdoor shed to store some of the kind of necessary tools you need. And kind of more modernly, you would see solar panels, or kind of like a Tesla power wall or something like that to provide you with your own sustainable energy. But I think it's important, to kind of like be critical of where your current starting point is. In Bermuda, it's thankfully we get a lot of sun, so something like solar power is viable. So it is kind of just knowing where you are, what infrastructure you have, and how that kind of best suits up with the climate that you have to kind of develop, what your goals are and what your plans are in terms of how do you want to develop your property to be self-sufficient if you do want to. I think it is a great option because, it allows you independence and flexibility to kind of build out the rest of your life with your family. If you want to live with your family, some people want to live by themselves and start their own family, which is also as a noble thing to do. So I do suggest that you consider what are your goals and how does your infrastructure kind of add to that, or if you want to move or whatever the case may be. And another big factor is, while homesteading is synonymous with farming, I think that's not all to it. I think having farms on homestead is necessary because you do want to grow your own food, but making sure that you're realistic about what you can handle. Having a farm that's several acres large and you're a family of 3 or 4 or 5 can work, of course, if you want to sell the produce. But if you're just looking to be self-sufficient, kind of making sure that you kind of tone it down a bit back and be realistic about what you can actually bring on is a important factor. So making sure that your land is rich, kind of making sure that you have the natural your land is cultivated to actually grow proper crops, so you're not kind of wasting time or kind of growing insufficient crops to feed you and your family. And I don't know if any of you in here are farmers or have farmed or gardened, but it could be a very tasking job, especially when you're dealing with pests and adverse climate, especially if climate change being such a huge factor right now across the world. I think it's important to kind of make sure that you have a decent plot of land, or at least you understand what you have to do to cultivate that land further for it to be actually applicable to grow, vegetables or fruits or nuts or whatever you want to grow. And okay, we're getting to the exciting part of my presentation, for me at least, about natural resource management, water catchment systems. So in Bermuda, like I mentioned, all our roofs are white. They're made of limestone traditionally, and then they're painted with white paint to kind of keep the temperature down on inside, as well as kind of act like back in the day more so it act like a natural filtration system to kind of take all that goop out the water, and then it kind of runs into our tanks. And then that is how we get water, because we're on an island. We have no natural water that we could kind of access. We do have wells, but due to something we have called kind of a cesspit, where you use the bathroom and then it goes into a pit in the ground, and unfortunately kind of leaked out into our natural kind of water systems underground. So a lot of our wells nowadays are compromised. A lot of more traditional Bermuda houses have wells and tanks, but every house does have a tank because, as you can see, they're white and they catch our water. So this is a picture of my neighborhood. The picture on the left on the pink house. I don't know if you can see my cursor here. This is my homestead. I live here with my family and my cousins, and all my cousins are a lot of, well, more so back in the day. Unfortunately, a few of them have migrated. So a lot of them live nearby. But this is what a traditional kind of Bermuda house looks like. It's a lot of different houses. As you can see, they're very colorful. But the important thing to keep in mind is all the roofs are white. Even this is our city in the bottom right. Every roof is white. Every single roof is white because that is how we get our water. So when it rains, it drips off our roofs and then it goes into our tanks, and that is what we use to get our water. So I think this could be, it's already implemented. I've seen examples within Asian architecture and architecture all around the world, of water catchment systems. So when it rains, you're making the most of your water that you store. It goes into your tank, you could use it and stuff like that. And in recent years, actually, it's rained a lot more in Bermuda than it usually does. So do keep in mind that they do overflow sometimes. So I guess kind of measuring the level of your water and making sure you don't use too much, you don't use too little, and you don't want it to overflow, but you also don't want it to go empty because water prices are steep. Especially here, we use reverse osmosis to actually kind of desalt and kind of make the water from the ocean drinkable sometimes. So there is also water plants that use reverse osmosis to kind of provide us water. But this is the traditional way, and this is the way we still use to get our water. So now on to resource management as it considers to animals. So with these are different animals that you could have on a homestead. I suggest you kind of less is more sometimes. If you have a few chickens to give you eggs, if you have a cow to give you milk and eventually meat, and if you have ducks to also give you eggs and goats to give you other things, as well as pigs, I think it's kind of just seeing what you want to handle, what animals kind of are you attracted to, and what do you think you and your family's capacity can be for animals within your property. So yeah, it's so many options. My favorite is chickens, hens to be exact. That want to lay eggs, of course. So they're great. They're most of the time they're chill, they're quiet, they're not making a lot of noise, and you get eggs. You could get an egg every day. So if you have 6 chickens, goodness, 2 days you could get a dozen eggs, and that could go a long way. Especially eggs here. I think eggs here are about $12 for a dozen. So it could be it's pretty expensive, especially because we import everything on island. So being self-sufficient here it saves you a lot of money for sure. And this is another interesting part of my presentation that I do enjoy. There's something called an anaerobic digester, which is a kind of a way of producing energy from waste material. And I think it's an awesome example of how far technology has come and how the applications that it be used in modern homesteading. Because I think when we talk about growing your own food, growing your own animals, it's great and all. Sometimes the return is you have to weigh whether or not it's worth it. When it comes to energy, energy drives everything. Energy is such an important factor of all of our lives. So I think when we talk about, kind of producing our own energy, that's the real, kind of motivator for a lot of people to consider being more self-sufficient as it relates to homesteading. So I think, this type of technology through an anaerobic digester, which could take manure or wastewater, food waste, other organic materials, put it through like a chemical process where it could produce biogas, electricity, heat, bioproducts, horticultural products, organic fertilizer, and it can produce a lot of different things depending on the system that you put it through. But I think it goes to say that this type of system and this type of technology, especially as it advances in the future, could be a huge, 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 kind of win for people that want to be more self-sufficient, because it's I was about to say relatively simple. It's not simple at all, but I think that if used and if understood by somebody that wants to apply it within their homestead, could be a huge, like I said, win for them. Could have huge implications on whether or not they're actually successful in their endeavors when it comes to homesteading and self-sufficiency. So I definitely encourage, if nothing else from this presentation, you definitely look up what is an anaerobic digester and what is that process, how important it is, and some of the leaps and jumps and bounds in technology that has been implemented recently as it relates to self-sufficiency. I think it's really cool. Hope you guys think it's cool too. And yeah, it takes a village. We have this saying in Bermuda, well, everywhere, I'm sure it's in every country, but it takes a village, to do anything. Like, one hand can't clap. It takes all of us working together. This is one of our community gardens. It was actually in a kind of very dangerous area riddled with gang violence and murders and, a lot of different kind of unfortunate circumstances. And through a lot of other circumstances, actually, became a community garden that a lot of our community gathers, and we have a garden that we, you, you know, annually, get together, harvest the crops, make different dishes, we eat it together, we share stories, and we, come together as a community. So I think, you can't do this by yourself, and finding the community, finding your, clique and your tribe that, you want to, partake in this journey with is important. Like, you can't do it by yourself at all. So I think by, finding people that you want to support and that support you in your endeavors makes this all worth it. And it really is like a fulfilling experience being self-sufficient alongside others, So yeah, that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation. I'll go over some closing and recaps of like, the entire process of, making sure that you could kind of produce your own food, you have the skills and knowledge to actually kind of, go through with a lot of the production of your own, products and, renovations at home. It basically is kind of just making sure that, you want to reduce your reliance on commercial goods and commercial services. You want to make sure you be able to like kind of produce for yourself and, kind of gain those skills and just pay it forward, pass it on, and build a community for yourself and your family to make sure that you're in this independent as possible. And it could be very fulfilling. And it's a great skill to have, especially now that more places are modernizing and more like metropolitans are being created. People are looking to kind of remove themselves because they would like to live more rural lives. And I know, there are a lot of parts of the world that have been doing this traditionally. Like this is the bread and butter for some cultures. So I think kind of like, making use of modern day technologies and methodologies could, take it one step further and make it more efficient and fulfilling for everybody involved. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. I really do. Please add me. This is my QR code. If it doesn't work, let me know and I can put my contacts into the chat. I really enjoyed it today. So thank you guys for inviting me. I really enjoyed the talk. Please, if you have any questions, let me know. And yeah, that brings me to the end of my presentation.
Yeah, so I wanted to
Yes,
ask
sir.
one question. So if I want to start homesteading, is there any viable website where I could, just get to know more about homesteading in detail as a person who's living in an urban area?
Yeah, it's so many webs. It's too much, to be honest. Like if you just go online, and I do suggest looking your local area. I'm goodness hundreds of thousands of miles away from you guys. So what homesteading will look like for me is different from what homesteading may look like for you. While it's the same concept, a lot of different factors may come into play. So I would say, Google is your best friend. Please go into online and just kind of research what leaps and bounds are happening in India. Funny enough, this past December, I headed to Dubai for 𝐶OP 28. And you guys, I met a lot of Indian delegates, and you guys are doing such amazing things in your country, and you guys, represented so well. And I got to meet so many different entrepreneurs and people, and politicians as well, that are just showing all the great things you're doing. You guys are the whole pavilion, and I'm just like, goodness, we're in in this side of the world, we think we're sharp, and then seeing what you guys are doing over there, it was amazing. It really, really was. So I would say there's a lot of things. So please research like what India is doing in the space as it relates to renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, urban development. As I'm sure you guys know, because you guys live there. Of course, I don't live there, so I'm kind of seeing from the outside looking in. But yeah, I would say just look online what things are happening, and then I'm sure so much stuff will come up. That's the best advice I could get.
Thank you for this interactive session. It was lovely. Like we got to know a
I
lot
appreciate
about homesteading, and I'm actually thinking of going into that now.
I
I
hope
think you've
so.
convinced me enough.
I hope so. I'm really happy to hear that you enjoyed it. Thank you. Does anybody
We'd
else have
now
any
like
questions?
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. I also have to ask some questions.
Oh, sounds good.
Hello?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yes, sir. Okay. Sir, first of all, I want to ask that how can we start a community if we are just youngsters?
Oh, I'm only 20, so I'm probably just in the same age group as you guys. I would say, can you
Yes,
guys hear me all right?
yes, sir.
All right,
Yeah,
sounds
you
good.
are.
I would say just go to, well, I take it you guys are in school. I don't know if they have like different kind of like eco clubs or, kind of like any clubs related to things of like, kind of sustainability. It's so funny using that word. It's kind of a buzzword, but kind of renewable agriculture, urban development, community resilience. Always look at like they have a lot of organizations like maybe your local Rotary clubs, maybe your local Red Cross. A lot of times these organizations do a lot of work in community resilience, and that's what it really is, because you're a member of your community, and being homesteading is makes you more resilient. So I would say look at any local organizations that are already doing community gardens or that are already kind of doing these type of projects. Join, learn, see what opportunities are there, and a lot of times there's a lot of grants. There's a lot of funding and financial kind of investments that could go into small communities or individuals that want to do something in their community that better. I know local Rotaries do grants. I don't know if you guys have like the Lions Club, a lot of different international organizations. The United Nations has a lot of different grants. Through their goodness, they have so many different branches. But I would just say look in your local community and your surrounding area, or even nearby in like other surrounding areas, and see what they're doing potentially, if they're doing any community gardens, community activities in regarding to like educating people as well. I think education is a huge part, and seeing what courses out there that will help you to be more self-reliant and resilient, and then go from there, get your education, find a grant, find a financial investment, and then get started. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Another
So
question.
one more question I have.
Can I ask first?
Oh.
Yes, you can.
Sure.
Okay. Because like living here in India, we've got a very large population, which means a shortage of land potentially. So what's the shortest amount of land we could take for homesteading, even if it's only for like one family's sustainability?
Oh goodness, well that's a great question, because because being in Bermuda, we're so small. Like we're so small. We're 21 miles, so like we have to make it work here. Like the smaller you could have it on a quarter acre, even like maybe like 100, 200 square feet. Something called grow biointensive. It's a method of gardening that maximizes the amount you could grow in a small space. And with chickens and stuff, like for example, or rabbits, or something like some small type of animal, you could have chickens in a chicken coop, and they could produce a lot of eggs. Like most traditional hens produce one egg per day. Maybe you go get a special one that produces two per day, or much more quicker. I don't know if those exist, don't quote me on that. But having like kind of small setups like that, like I've seen people, we make it work here. Like if you guys ever come to Bermuda, look up Bermuda, you'll see how small we are and compact. So people make it work on a piece of land that's, goodness, maybe 20 feet by 20 feet, and they'll have everything they need. Go on Pinterest. If anybody has Pinterest or TikTok, they
Yeah,
have
we
it.
do.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
that, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question.
No worries. You had another question, right?
Yes, sir. I have another question that what are the challenges of homesteading?
Yeah, some of the like a big real challenge I think for a lot of people, especially young people, is like it's a lot of physical labor, and a lot of times if you're working, you're busy in school, you're traveling, you want to see the world, you want to venture out. A lot of times you don't have that time and energy to really put into developing your own property. I really don't know how it is for you guys, but here we like I mentioned, we live with our families, or we live near our families. I'm also half Jamaican, so in Jamaica we live on a mountain, and surrounded by our mountain, our families and our friends and stuff. So it's kind of like a community of everybody helping each other. I don't know what it's like in India, for you guys at least, but I would say like if you do have a family that you live with, or if you do have cousins or relatives or community friends, and you live near them, kind of making sure that they could help you out. You know, it's like, you know, you scratch my back, so I will scratch yours. What can you help me with? I think kind of building as much of a resilient and kind of like helpful community as possible makes it 10 times easier. Another challenge is, you know, getting started. A lot of times it costs a lot of finances to really go, you know, buy all these materials. If you want to buy solar power, solar panels, or if you want to get a chicken coop, or if you want to buy cattle, it could cost a lot. But if you kind of have like a, you know, kind of strategic plan and kind of operational, you know, strategic overview, and if you bring your community on it, if you bring your institution on it, in on it, you could get funding. I know that there's so much. This, I mean, at least, like you mentioned earlier, India does have a lot of people, so a lot of the funding may run dry. But there's a lot of like, as well, international grants and, you know, different funding mechanisms that are out there. I would hope that there maybe some are accessible, but I would say probably doing research to see what's accessible, and that could alleviate some of the financial kind of hurdles that you have to go through in terms of getting funding to do some of your homesteading initiatives. So I think those are two of the major challenges and some of the kind of solutions to those challenges.
I feel like
Yes,
through
sir.
homesteading we are taking a like step back from commercial farming, because like we are vying for sustainability for ourselves. So I think that's a good thing, because like if you're stepping back from commercial farming a bit, saves a lot of money also, and yeah, you get safe kind of food for yourself, healthy
Yeah,
sustainable food. It's pretty good.
absolutely. Goodness, there was a woman. She was from, and her name's Oh my goodness, I don't want to look on my phone because I don't want to take time away from this. Her name is Madam something, and she does seed saving and a bunch of other things. She's fighting large. If anybody knows her name, if you know who I'm talking about, please put it in the chat. You know, she has a lot of documentaries out. I've watched her. I can't believe I can't remember her name. I want to say Madam Sharma, but I don't know if that's her name. Anyway, a lot of times, you know, people want to, like you mentioned, combat a lot of these large scale commercial organizations that make billions of dollars a year farming like thousands of acres of land and monocropping, destroying the planet, destroying the soil, cutting down forests to grow land, to have cattle. And cattle are huge kind of they they produce a lot of carbon methane gas that goes up into the air. Sorry, though. I said carbon dioxide, but methane gas that goes in there, you know, warms the climate, blase, blase. So kind of, I think breaking up, you know, these agricultural products and making sure, like, you know, there are, you know, instead of one big farm, there are 1,000 smaller farms, and that means the money is kind of spread out to a lot of different people. A lot of different people can make their incomes. It's much more manageable. It's better for the environment. It's better for the people. It's better for the plants. It's better for the animals. I think breaking it down into smaller kind of like different, not silos, because we should all work together, but different kind of fragments of like this one large scale, you know, agricultural product in terms of agriculture. So I think that, yeah, I'm in full support that, you know, I don't want to say down with these big large organizations, but if they're not doing the right thing, they gotta go.
Okay, so thank you for that wonderful answer. Definitely, I loved the way you spoke about your personal views on it, because essentially, yes, I'm also not a big fan of commercial farming, even though I am one of the people who's, you know, into eating through that. But yeah, great, lovely. So for ending the session now, I'd like to call upon Divyansh for the thank you note. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for such great insights. Before proposing a official vote of thanks, I just uh, want everyone to switch on their camera so that we can capture a few moments for our.
Oh, thank you.
Please, everyone, switch on your camera so that we can capture a few moments. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Also, if you guys having any type of question in your mind, you can ask now about the official vote of thanks, if anyone. Okay, thank you so much. So before proposing a official vote of thanks, I must say that the whole session is really informative, and the kind of insights you add is really going to help us in our journey. So we have successfully reached to the end of this webinar. I am very much humbled and honored to be the one making the closing of today's webinar by proposing a vote of thanks to our speaker. I, Divyansh, on behalf of all and entire Pahal Horizon team, extend a sincere thanks to Mr. Zayne Sinclair on his beautiful delivered thoughts on the journey of homesteading, its benefits, challenges, and considerations. Sir, you surely added glory to this webinar. We all are inspired by your great work and the kind of experience, and it will definitely help us all in our upcoming future. And I am also gratified by the presence of our knowledgeable editors of Pahal Horizon, Mr. Yatendra Singh sir, Mrs. Rachita Sharma ma'am, Mrs. Neetu Singh ma'am, and Mr. Akash Arya sir. Thank you so much all of you to join this session. And I also want to extend my thanks to our board members, to all the joint researchers, all the mentors, and all the loved audience. Pahal Horizon organized many events, webinars, and talks on such important topics. You can visit our website or visit our social media handles for more information. We will be back soon with such amazing webinars and events and talks in future too. So stay updated and follow Pahal Horizon and enjoy with your stuff. Thank you so much everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. It was my absolute pleasure to come here and, network with you guys. I hope I could cross paths with all of you in the future if I ever come that side of the world. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope you guys all enjoy your day.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Thank you so much, sir.
See you guys later. Have a great day. Thank you again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye. Have a nice day.
As well.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much.
Thank you everyone for joining. You can leave the meeting now.